Okay. Gideon, yeah.
Now, during the last years, I'm looking for family ties, genealogical information regarding mainly my father's side, and because of my mother's side, the family, Saint-Louis, I know a lot and I have a lot of information, including family trees and things dating back. And as I said, I'm busy looking for other family ties through my heritage, and especially during a site called Jenny, which gives a lot of information from time to time about my family connections. Now, coming across one of the connections through a colleague of mine at the organization of underground or resistance groups, Jewish resistance people, and also people out of the Hachshara, out of the schools, different schools of agriculture in Holland. I came across a lady who was at that time in Berlin, and she phoned me from there, and she told me that she came across a book in which my former family name is mentioned frequently. And I was very much, because this is my father's side, which I'm looking for, which I have very little information. And apparently, she told me that the book is in German, but I can always also procure a copy, which is a very good translation in English. And she said the Litten, two people named Hans Litten are very much mentioned in the book, especially one of them. So I said, okay, give me the information. And I in a very short time, through the internet, I procured the book, and it's called My Father's Country, and this is actually the book. This is a German, the translation into English, a very good translation from the German original book. Now, the book is written by a lady named Wipke Bruns. Wipke Bruns, the late, she died a few years ago. Wipke Bruns, I'll show you a picture of her. This is Wipke Bruns, who is the author of the book. Now, Wipke Bruns is used to be a very famous person in Germany, like Chaim Yavin in Israel, parallel to him. She was a television commentator and an author with the Stern magazine. And in one of her journeys, she was in Jerusalem. She was stationed in Jerusalem, and she wrote another book, Mein Jerusalem, my Jerusalem of mine, which is very about Jerusalem, and she is very pro-Israeli. And in my country, my father's country, this is a story of a German family. Her father was Major Hans-Georg Klamroth, and he was a major in the Waffen-SS, apparently, in the Storm SS, you know, in the fighting force of the SS. But it happens to be that he was enlisted by the Hitler regime in 1933. But because of the fact that he was a petty officer, a lieutenant during World War I, and all the officers who were in World War I were at the time young officers or young soldiers, were later on enlisted to the Nazi Nazi army. So this book is about him. But what now back to the Litten. How come the Litten? Now when he was a petty officer at the, or he was a lieutenant actually, a lieutenant at the First War. And when he grew up later on, when the war ended, he grew up as an industrialist. He was a very successful industrialist, and among other things, he had a private secretary by the name of Hans Litten. Hans Litten, who was also an advocate, he was also a lawyer, but he was his personal secretary as he is at the factory, and in spite of the fact that he was part Jewish, he worked with them all those years. Now, when Gorg was enlisted to the German Reich regime, Gorg he decided that due to the fact that Hans Litten was such a successful secretary, he wanted him to work with him, even that he was enlisted as a major at the Waffen-SS, even that he was part Jewish, but he never told anyone about it, of course. And he worked with him for some years until 1944. What happened in 1944? Major Klamroth, George Hans Klamroth, who was actually an enlisted major at the Waffen-SS, decided that, as others decided, that they have to cut down Hitler. And he got in touch and enlisted with the other officers of the German regime, other officers, to overcome Hitler, and in some way even to try to murder him, to murder Hitler. And they formed a group, a very, very known group, and they named the act as the Valkyrie action. There's a movie, so the Valkyrie film, and he was one of the officers enlisted by this known colonel of the Valkyrie group, in which they tried to overcome and to murder Hitler at the Wolf's base at Eastern Europe. That was the main base from which they which they planned all the attacks on Russia and the East. So he was one of the group, and as we all know, they sent the colonel. I don't remember at the moment the name of the colonel, but it's very known. They sent the colonel to the Wolf's base, which was a very big base in the forests of eastern Poland. And they tried to eliminate Hitler with a bomb inside a briefcase, which was put under the table of the conference room where Hitler attended a meeting, a very important meeting. Apparently the bomb was not big enough, the charge was not big enough, and they it was unsuccessful. Hitler was only armed was wounded only lightly, and they found out about the plot. The German regime found out about the plot, and they executed all the officers involved in this plot, including Gorg Hans Klamroth. And they even executed him because he was, even they did not execute him by a firing squad. They wanted to make it more dreadful, and they hanged him instead. Now Hans Litten managed to somehow to flee and to be caught to a forced labor camp. And this was all arranged because nobody actually knew that he was half Jewish, and he was only at a labor camp, and he managed to up to the end of the war, he managed to get alive out at this harsh labor camp, and he even tended the widow of Klamroth, of Major Klamroth, and so when I saw his name, I said to myself, maybe this is part of my family. I'll try to reach the author of the book, Wibke Bruns, and to ask her if there are any descendants of this Litten, of this Hans Litten. And she told me that Hans Litten had two sons. One of them is still alive, the other son, and he is an ex-judge in Hanover. He lives in Rainer Litten. He lives in Hanover. And she said, I'll ask him if he wants you to contact him. But I didn't say I've been Jack Robinson, you know. A day after that, my inquiry, he already contacted me. Rainer Litten, the son of Hans Litten. And he told me, and he said, you are lucky, because my father, this Hans Litten, was very interested in genealogical information, and I started to look after his papers and books, and what I found out was that your family, about your father, he even has a limited edition of my father's thesis at the Humboldt University among his books, among his information. And apparently they seem to be related to some years back, you know, to some great-great-great-grandfather, same grandfather. So we somehow are related. And I said, and they said it's the most the most funny information was that in Israel, as I told my story before, I had an uncle, and the uncle had a daughter, Miriam Litten. He had a daughter, and she. I was in contact with his daughter, of course, and I even managed to meet the uncle, because the uncle was killed during a Syrian aircraft assault on Nahariya at 1948. He died by the bombing of the Nahariya main street. But his daughter Miriam, I got in contact with her. I was in contact with her, but I lost contact because she was divorced, and she got a different name. And the funny thing was that this Rainer Litten said, you know, you have a niece in Israel? I said, yes. I said, what? And I said, I know. She has a different name now, and but he gave me a different name. So I found out through him. I found her again. I'm now in contact with her, of course. through all this, through Germany, I found
It's amazing.
amazing. I found I recontacted her after some years, you know, and with her new name. So, but she came back afterwards with her previous name. So she's Miriam Litten again after that. And she has a few sons as well, so I got acquainted with them. So this is one story, which is Rainer, and apparently I got in contact with Rainer Litten, and when there was a commemoration of my father at Berlin in 2010, which I attended with my son, he also came to the ceremony, which was at the Humboldt University, to my late father. He came with his wife, and so...
But you never knew him then?
No, I met him. This was the first time I met him.
It's the first time you met him?
He and my son, and we had a lot of common because my son is a lawyer too. And later on, he came to Israel with a group. He came to Israel with a group, and after that he came another time to Israel as a, because there is a group named the Israeli-German Lawyers Group. And he came with that group, and he attended at the local he attended the local bar of Tel Aviv, because my son was at the ethic committee of the group of the bar of Tel Aviv, and he hosted him and his whole group from other lawyers. He was a judge, and he hosted them at the group, and so he met him too, and he gave there a lecture at the bar of Tel Aviv. So he was in good connection and with my son, and later on I visited him with my wife in Berlin. We came to visit Rainer, and he came out in Berlin. There was an interesting fact that in Israel you can change your family name every 7 years, you know, in Israel. In Germany you cannot. In Germany you cannot, you can only change your name during a marriage. But during marriage they give you the option either to carry the name of the man or the woman. So they can not always according to the man. But this Rainer has 4 children. He has four children, 3 sons and a daughter. No, 3 sons and 2 daughters. Okay, so the daughters, when the daughters' time came, when they married, they made a poll. You know, Hagrala, you say? Yeah, a poll. They made a poll. What will be the future family name? And the Litten won in both cases. So all the children are called Litten, and not according to the men. The men, of course, are stayed Litten, but the 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, are all Litten. And we met some of them in Berlin, and they came with their children. It was very nice to this family meet. This is one story. Another story is, the book mentioned another Hans Litten, who is a nephew from this Litten, and they mentioned another Litten. This is even more. This is a very, very worldwide known story. And if you have not heard about Hans Litten, the lawyer, now this is a very it's not worldwide known, and I'm sorry that it is not worldwide known, because if they even named the street after him in Mitten, Berlin, because there was another Hans Litten who was a lawyer, 27 years old, and he was not fully Jewish. He was Jewish by his father. By the way, Rainer's grandfather was chief of the Kehillah in Königsberg some years back. You know Königsberg,
sure,
which is Kaliningrad now, Russia. He was chief Rosh HaKehillah, he was chief of the Kehillah. Now, the other Hans Litten was a lawyer, and he was part Jewish, and his mother was not Jewish, so he's actually not Jewish, but according to Chukei HaGira, you know, Shvut, he was. So he was a lawyer, and he defended mostly working personnel in Berlin. Now, when Hitler emerged in the 20s and later on 1930, one of his ways to conquer the city, the population, by to conquer the population was through working unions, and in Berlin, the union, or the working, there were two big unions, one of the communists and one of the socialists, not the National Socialists, the Socialist Union. At that time, they were both the strongest unions in Berlin, and not the National Socialists. So he tried in order to conquer Berlin, he sent over his Sturmabteilung, SA, people at the brown uniforms, to conquer Berlin, to blast out union gatherings and things like that by harsh force, in order to get more union workers to choose his social Nazi party union. And in one of the instances, there was a big gathering of workers at the dancing hall in Berlin, and the SA group people came in and tried to blast the gathering, and even murdered two of the workers. And at that time, that was in 1931, only 1931, and at that time the police was still active, the regular police was still active in Berlin, and they caught the two murderers, and they had to trial them. And then all the liberals, some of the liberals, or not all of the liberals, some of the liberals in Berlin decided that they have to nominate a good lawyer to be the prosecutor at the trial. And they chose Hans Litten to be the prosecutor on the trial of those two murderers of the SA who murdered the workers. And this was a big trial. This is all issued in a book by an American doctor, and also later on filmed as a biographical film by the BBC. And I came across all this later on, but the story is that the trial was actually, there were actually films of the trial. The trial was held in a big trial house in Berlin. Many people came around because of the reason that Hans Litten, the liberals, asked Hans Litten to be the prosecutor and to put Hitler on the witness stand. And apparently Hitler came on the witness stand, and he interrogated Hitler himself, and he proved that the SA is a group run by the Nazis, and the head of the Nazis is Hitler. That's the reason. And this was a very, very rough trial, but eventually the judge got cold cold arms or fed away, you know, because of the popularity at that time of Hitler already. And somehow he kind of dismissed the connection of well proven by Hans Litten, that Hitler is actually running the SA and he is in charge of this murder. But the trial was not so successful because the judge could not, was afraid to get that justice the decision. And after this trial, all the documents of the trial were kept, you know, of course. And after this trial, all the liberals told Hans Litten to leave Berlin because it's very dangerous for him to stay there and to flee to another country. But he decided, he said, I have my clients here and I have to defend all these clients and I can't leave. And apparently in 1933 he was caught by the Nazi regime, not of any reason, but what you call in Hebrew, how do you call it? Matzar. Matzar, just matzar. He was just caught by the German and driven to a concentration camp, and from one camp actually to another camp. He was, for 5 years, he was at the camp, actually. He was actually 5 years at the camp, and he ended at Dachau. He was tortured. They took out one of his eyes, and at 1938 he took his life. And the German Justice Department has a big bust commemorating him. There's even a street in Berlin named after him, and the lawyers' bar in Berlin is called the Hans Litten Bar. Even today, they called it after him. And the story was actually later on made by an Irish author as a play, and another play is taken at midnight, which was played in England for some time, and is mainly about his mother, who during those 5 years when he was imprisoned, during those 5 years, he was she tried to free him. She even sent a petition by 80 people of the House of Lords in England to Hitler, but Hitler threw it away, and there was no success. But apparently, this same author who made a play about the whole story, which I just told you, he made another play mainly pertaining to the mother's tries to free him. And this play was held in England, and later on the Israeli theaters, both Hakamari and Habima, tried to fought actually to get this play in Hebrew, to get the rights of the play. And apparently Habima got the authority to play the play, and this was held in Tel Aviv some years back. I was as an acquaintance with the family, with Hans Litten. I was invited to the first play, and it's called Netzar B'Chatzot, or you call it Taken at Midnight.
Taken at midnight.
And I tell you, this is first. No, here is better. This is all in English.
It's amazing. And it was well received.
Well received. Now, as his mother, Gilal Magor played the main part of the mother, and Ran Dankner played Hans Litten. And I was invited to the
it was like the opening.
To the play, of course, and I went there a few times with all my family members. We saw it all, and this is actually you can see it in England in English too. The whole story is here in English and in short, which is.
It's wonderful, and this is it's relations.
We are some kind of a nephew, a far nephew, some
distant
nephew.
Relatives.
Yeah.
And Gideon, is there any other Litten family in Israel?
No, apart from my family, yeah. But only Miriam Litten and their sons, but there.
And this is, wow, all your research.
Yeah, this is a real story. I mean, not many people know about this, but this is a real story. You can read it now. And so this is some other connections I found out, and it happened to be more known in Israel now due to this play.
That's wonderful. Well, you come from such a very special family. Your parents were really, they were such heroes, and I so appreciate you relating.
So this is okay.
Thank you so much.